G'day everybody, it's Peps here, and I have got a special guest. We're doing our Carlton 2022 season preview. And back by popular adieu, we've got Terry from the Blue Abroad, because I tell you what, when we had a chat last year about the Blues, we did not know how big it was going to be in 2021. Your off-season has been huge, and we'll get into that in a moment. But the feedback that we got about you're a much-loved person of the Lace-Out community just for your passion about your magnificent Carlton Football Club. Welcome back.
Thank you. No, it's good to be back. I really did enjoy last year's episode. And yeah, I guess I am a bit psychotic for my football club, but aren't we all?
Oh, we all are. It's not just football clubs, it's football in general. Like I said, I just got off the phone with a Yank on the footy from overseas. He loves his footy and he's in Ohio and he has his own AFL podcast. And I had a chat about him about the D's. We all love our footy. It's the greatest game in the world, and it doesn't matter which club we follow, but you are a mad, passionate Carlton supporter. We know there's been a bit of change. I don't know if you know, but there's been a bit of change with your club over the last 6 to 12 months. The Teague train got decommissioned. You've had people leaving. You've had people coming in. So what's going to happen? How do you see things flowing on in 2022 different from 2021? Just from your outset, what have you heard? What's the feelings? What's the Marbo? What's the serenity? Give it to us.
I think overall, if I'm speaking on behalf of the fan base and myself as a general Carlton fan, we lost faith in whatever was going on last year, and the season turned to shit pretty quickly, if we're honest. It just did. It just didn't get going. We were chasing tail, and then we got to round 12 and 13, and it was pretty evident that something was wrong. It was dysfunctional. It wasn't working. We were losing in the exact same way to the same teams. And, obviously with our club, we've been down in the dumps for many years. We've got all this talent that we talk about, but unfortunately we haven't been able to put a group or an environment around them that make them get the best out of themselves. So I'm really excited with the coaching group we've got now, because one thing that I was asking for and have been asking for a while is, can we get some winners around that know what it takes? And, you look at Michael Voss, and he's really, in terms of player and leader, I think he really is at the top of the tree in terms of knowing what it takes and being able to give that advice down to, other players. And, then you look at the messaging, it's so different this year. It's not about we're going to be good and we're going to be this and we're going to be that. It's about earning the respect back, which I think is very important. And I think we need to be real with ourselves. The Carlton Football Club it's been a joke. It has been a joke. We've been the laughing stock of the competition. We're now that team where you ask me, who do I go for? And I say Carlton, and you get the, okay. So
that's okay. I did it for 45 years. Who do you go for? Melbourne. Why? I get why. You get, I get why.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully you can start living a bit of, awesome, rather than the,
Exactly.
So, you did have a few people out, and if you have a look at the list, there's some rippers. That's the tough one that I look at. So Cruiser and Cade Simpson, they're going to be big losses. Okay. But then it's just the little things that Gibbons, he's on your senior list now, isn't he?
No, he got delisted.
He got delisted as well.
Yes.
I get that wrong. I'm looking at the wrong one. Kennedy's gone. Eddie Betts is gone. Oh, you got rid of your leading goal kicker at one stage, which was Oscar McDonald. I don't know why you'd go and get rid of him. But yeah, you're right. I think it's interesting to sort of see what you've brought in. We know about Chera, but it's all the other bits as well too. Give us a bit of are you excited about those list changes coming? Are they going to make a difference, or is it going to be just, doesn't matter what you bring on, you've got to have that structure and you've got to have that game plan around it to actually support these guys?
100%. I mean, we bring in Chera and Hewitt. I mean, I think one of the biggest downfalls of the Carlton Football Club in 2021 was, we had these beautiful names and draft picks and Paddy Dowles and all these names, and Zach Williams came across, to be a midfielder, and it didn't work out that way. We now bring in Chera and Hewitt, who I look at them as, two-way runners. That's probably something that we struggled with. We leaked a lot from the midfield last year and put our defenders under a lot of pressure. And, I think especially now that Sam Walsh has recently been injured, we've now got a bit of cover with Chera and Hewitt there. And then the idea is that one or two of this, 5-man group in the midfield who haven't really locked in a spot yet, the idea is hopefully 2 or 3 of them emerge, and then we actually have that depth in the midfield. Because, I mean, you look at the D's, for example, and the Dogs and those top teams, they run deep in the midfield, and we don't. So it's important for us.
Yeah, and both those teams, you'd have to say, built them organically, and that's a thing that Carlton have sort of half-half. I reckon you still need to get a couple extra from the draft. But you're right. You bring in George Hewitt, you bring in Chera, and you bring in Lewis Young. So there's three that boost the stocks up. Because Sam Walsh can't do it all. And I saw him live last year when you played Melbourne. And I was, because you don't normally go to a lot of opposition clubs and look at them, but he stood out to me. You're right, two-way running is exceptional. Cripps just needs that support. He's not getting younger. His body's been battered over the last number of years. Yes, he's going to get the inside ball, but you need that outside run. And I think those three, especially Chera, they're going to be giving that to you. And finally, can we please have Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow on the park at the same time? Yes.
Unfortunately for us, it seems like every preseason there's a season-defining injury or a bad one. Obviously, Sam Doherty, the former co-captain, terrible battle with cancer for the second time, which hurts in more ways than just footy. And then you lose Sam Walsh for the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season this year. But this is the thing: we can't afford to be a team that relies so heavily on that top end. I think for too long we have. Like for many years, the narrative was Patrick Cripps, best player, needs help. And then I think last year that kind of changed a little bit with Walsh really emerging as our best player. And now we add a few pieces. And then, again, the hope is that these draft picks from 2016 and 2017 can actually emerge. And, they've got 3 or 4 preseasons under their belt now. And usually that's when the sweet spot is. And yeah, it's a lot of, like, I think I used to sell the dream just to manifest the positivity and, we're going to be good this year because we have the draft picks and the talent. Whereas now it's like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to wait and see what happens. And it's all going to be, really evident how hard we really are working to improve once the games start.
I think if you have a look what left and what came in, for the first time in a while, I would say the ins have outplayed. So you did lose Eddie Betts retired. Mark Murphy retired. And mind you, regardless of, Mark Murphy, every club's got a Mark Murphy, 300 games, tried his heart out. Captain, you can't fault the guy for what he brought to the club. Like, it's one of those ones I go, I reckon he got a rough end of the stick. Now, maybe from Carlton supporters, understandably, but from outside. Casbolt, fair enough. Petrevsky-Skeeton, you get rid of him. Gibbons, like I said, Ramsey. And the one that I'm probably devastated about the most is Liam Jones. I'm really upset that he had to leave for that particular reason. The loss of him, are you going to be able to cover it? Because let's be honest, he was almost your, outside of Wiedering, your key defender.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it's a big hole. It is a reality, and it hasn't been filled yet. I think the narrative is that Lewis Young will come in and slot in.
Yep.
I'm not quite there with that narrative just yet. I actually think your boy Oscar McDonald is going to fill a nice spot in that back line, and I think in a funny way, it's forced us to rejig the back line. I think we had a few too many defenders who look to intercept and be offensive. I think Liam Jones was one of them. Whereas I think if we have someone like an Oscar McDonald there who's just purely there to lock down and then allow other guys to play that intercept role, like we know Mitch McGovern's now going to be playing as a spare defender, almost like a Jake Lever type role. Not necessarily as good, but the same role. I think that's where we're going to have to be creative. And again, it presents another question rather than an answer of, is it going to work? So we're going to have to wait and see.
I think McGovern down back is probably the spot that he needed to be. He just never looked right down forward at all.
No.
But yeah, I was shattered when Jones left, obviously, for the COVID reasons, and especially the time frame as well, too, because it was after the draft. It was all after the trade period. It's like, why couldn't you tell us this earlier? But maybe he didn't know. Yeah, I'm a massive fan. Look, I've got to say, Jacob Wiedering, love everything that he brings. Love everything about Sam Walsh. I love everything about Harry Mackay. Love everything about Cripsy. All right, so we've got the big four. Who's the one at the moment that you think, okay, this year he's going to be our breakout. He's the one that's going to set us alight. We didn't see this one coming. Every club's got one. Who is Carlton going to be looking at the end of the season going, geez, I tell you what, Terry's on the ball. the Tesmeister, he knows his stuff. Who is it going to be for your mob, you reckon?
I think internally with Carlton supporters, this player is well respected and we love what he brings. I think outside of the Carlton world, I don't know if this player necessarily has that reputation, but I think by the end of the season, it's going to be Jack Silvani. I think that's the one that by the end of the year we'll be saying, oh my God, he's really come on and he's consistent and he's a heart and soul player. We know that the Silvani name is huge with the Carlton Football Club. He's a third-generation player, and it's hard to live up to the Silvani name, but I think Jack is absolutely ready to take that next step and become a real mature man within the AFL fraternity. And I don't think he'll be as good as what I said Sam Walsh will be last year, but I think it'll be Jack Silvani.
I must admit, I reckon towards the end of the season last year, you could just see that he was just growing into himself. He's played 78 games. That's the thing that struck me when I looked at the stats just then. He's had 78, but he's kicked 56 goals, so he's almost at 3/4 of a goal a game.
Mm-hmm.
Won a game with these guys, with the amount of supply that you were getting quite recently. Let's be honest, that's actually not too bad. But he was actually not just, and like I said, if his name was Andrew Jackson, no one would put any pressure on him whatsoever. But because he's wearing the number 1. He's got that name against him. It does put the pressure on him, and probably early days. But I stood next to him at a Melbourne game a while ago. He's actually a tall beast as well. You don't realise how big he is. He's 194 centimetres in height.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
And now he's got a body to fill out. He's going to be really tasty for you guys. I'm really excited by him. Paddy Dow was always a name that always keeps coming up. Now I can look at your face now. Is that a smile like yep or yep?
It's a hope more than what it's confidence. Like I love Paddy Dow. I think we all the Carlton supporters, we love our boys. We love our draft picks. You know, we really are passionate about our people. I think if it's not this year where he really stamps himself into the team, then I just wonder what the faith will be like in him moving forward, because I think this is the last opportunity for him to really lock it down before we start thinking about that next crop coming through. We've got quite a few really young players who are showing some nice signs. And so with Paddy Dow, he had some nice flashes towards the end of last season, some really solid games. It's now about putting it all together and getting a full season together. And by the end of the year, I hope to be saying to you, gee, Paddy Dow really locked himself in and we can't not pick him.
I agree. And there's another name where you mentioned flashy. There's one person who stands out when you say the word flashy. He is the number 21, and we're talking about Jack Martin here. Now, where do you think? Because he's, I don't know, he started off okay. I think the first game of the year he really turned it on, and then it was, the hype over the delivery hasn't been there. And I'm not just saying it from a Carlton perspective, but also a Gold Coast as well too. Will he ever be the player that people thought he is going to be? Like they've said he was probably going to be one of the best ever, the next Gary Ablett Jr. or the whatever it might be. Where do you see him? Do you want him just to be part of the group, or do you want him to be the one that really, like, what he's meant to be, the standout for the Blues?
Well, for me, he should be a top 10 player at the club. He's paid accordingly. He's paid very handsomely. And I think the story of Jack Martin is his first 3 to 4 rounds of most years in his career have been really exciting. And then there is always some sort of an injury. Last year it was the PCL, which, what do? It's a collision injury. It's unlucky. He misses 10 weeks of the season. Once you miss 10 weeks in the season, it's hard to really catch up when everyone else is just flying by you. And the reality is, you're right, the question you've asked is literally the story of Jack Martin. It's can he or will he, and what if? And I think, on a broader lens, I think that's really the story of the Carlton Football Club. It's a lot of what ifs and if he does and, the potential. So I don't know. I don't want to sell the dream about Jack Martin. He's also not training at the moment with the full group. He seems to be in a rehab group. So not a good start to the year. But nonetheless, he should be ready to go.
He should be ready to go. But you also have a look at where he's come from. What you said was Gold Coast. You go right for maybe the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then that was the Gold Coast way. So it's almost, and if you think when Stephen May came to Melbourne, same sort of thing. It was just a different, probably wasn't at that level that they need to be at. Maybe the preseason, just get another harder preseason into him, will pay dividends as well too. Out of the 3 that we mentioned a moment ago, which was, I've got going to remember it. Sorry. Hewitt, Chera, and Young. Who's the one you're most excited about? I'm probably a loaded question here, and I think I know who it's going to be. But out of those three, which is the one that you really we need him?
I think Chera is the easy answer, but to be honest with you, it's George Hewitt. And the reason why I say it's George Hewitt is because he is a dog. He's a workman. He's a two-way runner. He does all the little one-percenters. And I think he's not there to be flashy. He does not have an Instagram account. It's not about George Hewitt. It's about the club. And I think he's come from a really good culture at the Swans. And I think he is someone that we need more of. And I just love what I'm seeing from him in the preseason.
Yep. He's and that culture has to be driven by the players. And so if he's come from a culture where he's no. I know what needs to be done to get us to that level. You need to do this. You need to put in the extra hours, the extra sessions, etc. It's what you do outside of these, excuse the term, four walls, which is going to pay the dividends down the end as well. Harry Mackay, how good can this guy get? Because he was exceptional last year. I don't think there would have been too many people picking him for a Coleman. I think you might have actually picked it for it, but there wouldn't have been too many that outside of the Carlton faithful that would have gone, he's going to be a Coleman medalist at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, 58 goals from 20 games. To be honest with you, I think this is year one of Harry's peak. I think he can only get better from here. I think he's still got loads of improvement to come on two fronts. Number one, the supply and his accuracy in front of goal will improve. And then number two, we've got Charlie Curnow back in the side. And what it does is it takes away that extra defender, because Harry is a guy that by the end of the season, it was double team, triple team, because Carlton did not have a well-known second forward option. So with Charlie back, hopefully fit and healthy for the rest of the season, I think it's only going to allow Harry to have more freedom and get some more easier opportunities. You know that notion of getting the easy goals? Well, Harry doesn't really get easy goals, so to speak. He has to really work.
Not towards the back end, Dev, because you knew that if you stop Mackay, you've got a massive chance of stopping Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go stop Mackay. He's this bloke called Charlie Curnow running around. Good luck.
It's exciting. It's exciting to have Charlie back.
Can you just hear it in the voice that it's exciting to see? Now, we know Eddie's finished up. Who takes that small forward spot for you? Because let's be honest, even though it's Eddie Betts and he was getting on in age, it's still Eddie Betts and it's still someone who was dangerous around goals. To take that, not just from a goal-kicking perspective, from an experience perspective, who's going to fill that slot? Because we know that small forwards, I wouldn't say coming back into vogue, but they are just as dangerous now because of the way the ball and the way that clubs are bringing the football into the 50s these days. It's almost bring it to ground and have the swarmers. Who's going to be that for Carlton at the moment?
There's two of them. One of them, his name is Matt Owies. He played a little bit last year. He's a former basketballer. He was our Category B rookie. He's now been elevated to the senior list. And we have another one who I actually sponsor, so I'm biased towards him, but his name is Corey Durden. And I think we'll see a lot more of him in 2022. And I think by the end of the year, most of us will know who he is. He's coming along nicely.
What makes him special? Like, obviously, you've sponsored him, but what was it about him? Because you can pick it. Hopefully, you can virtually sponsor anyone if you want to, but you sponsored him. There's something about him that there was a twinkle in your eye that went, ooh, there's something about this kid.
He is a small forward, obviously, but the way he tackles and hits his opponent, like he hits to kill. It's not a trait that a Carlton player has had. Generally speaking, he is just willing to really crack in, and he's got this second, third, fourth effort mentality about him, and he's there for a war. He's good family, good values. He's got his head screwed on. His priorities are right. He works super hard. He's very diligent, and I think the hard work is going to be rewarded this year.
Well, I also think the hard work's going to happen off the field as well too. You're right. Michael Voss coming in, he spent, I think, 7 years down at Port Adelaide, learning off Mr. Hinkley and seeing what it's take to get in. So I think that was what he missed, having to sort of go from a coaching straight into senior, start playing straight into senior coaching. It didn't work out. Let's be honest. He's gone and done his apprenticeship. He's gone and done what he probably should have done the first time round, and you can sort of understand why. You bring him in. You bring in Aaron Hamill as a backline coach, which is interesting because he spent most of his time down forward, but we'll leave that there. You bring in Ashley Hansen as well too from the Doggies as well. You're right. You've brought in not just from a playing capacity, but from a coaching capacity, fresh ideas, fresh voices, fresh analysis. And we know it's not always going to be the coach. If you can get the right support people around him, it can make a massive difference. What have you heard or what have you seen so far that, once again, is getting the juices flowing from a Carlton perspective?
Well, Vossi is a winner. He is a winner. He knows what it takes to win. And I think one of the other important things to remember is part of being successful and part of knowing how to win is losing. And I think he did it as a player before they became the great Brisbane Lions dynasty. They were not very good, not very disciplined. Then they figured it out and did what they did. And I think the same thing applies to him when it comes to coaching. Like he was self-aware to know that he needed to do an apprenticeship, so to speak. He goes and works under Ken Hinkley. I think the outside world, I don't know what it is about. Maybe it's just an immaturity in the industry about giving people a second chance. But he's now done the losing again, and I think he's learnt from his mistakes. And I think this isn't to take a pot shot at David Teague, but at the end of the day, if I'm a player and David Teague's telling me to run through a brick wall, all right, I'm listening. But Michael Voss, it's Michael Voss. Like a lot of these players, like Sam Walsh was a Brisbane supporter growing up. Michael Voss literally was on his wall. So when you've got a guy who has done it to the level that Voss has, 3-time premiership captain and multiple All-Australian, best and fairest winner, it's all of a sudden it's like, wow, Michael Voss knows. And I think there's a full level of trust with whatever Michael Voss is saying. And he doesn't give the fluff. I think that's the other part about Ken Hinkley, which is important for Voss. Ken is a straight shooter, a little bit more wiser and a little bit older and more experienced. And I think it was the perfect apprenticeship for Vossi to have. And that's the other part about the Carlton Football Club as well. We haven't been very transparent over the years. We try and hide things and whatnot, whereas now I'm expecting Vossi to just say it how it is, be honest with the fans, be honest with the players, be hard on the players, but also I think he commands more respect than maybe what the previous coaching group did.
Well, you had that, and then you also had Brendan Bolton as well too. So the intentions were there, but they just, like I said, the blue shoots or the green shoots, they are starting. I think this is something that I think a lot of clubs, like if it does work out with Voss, he's going to get the plaudits. He's going to get all. But I think Bolton definitely did. You have a look at who he brought in from a drafting perspective. Sensational. Maybe at that senior level, probably just wasn't there, because I think you have to have a little bit of ruthlessness about you as well too. You've obviously got to give people a hug, but you've also got to give them a slap when they need to as well too. Teague was a little bit like that as well too, and unfortunately he got decommissioned. The Teague train got decommissioned last year. You're right with Voss. If you have a look at St Kilda though, they brought Ratton back, and you could almost say that hasn't worked. Now they'll say it's injuries, but I still think they had enough good players on the park to be able to do something. You think it's going to be different with Voss?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more of a professional outfit. I think there's going to be a lot more of a trust with what he's saying and what he's doing amongst the group. My personal belief is that the players lost faith in what Teague was doing and the game plan that he was trying to instill in them. And then couple that with giving, yes, we love Eddie Betts, we love Mark Murphy, Levi Casbolt, but it was time to move on. It's time to give up on the dream of them carrying us to a flag and holding on for the glory. And I think part of our club right now is it's time to literally hand it over to this next group who will then carry it forward for the next 5 to 7, 8, 9 years.
And I really think you're right there where you said that you can hold on to the romance a certain amount, but you have to then make the tough calls. Hawthorn made those tough calls. I keep going back to my club because I can remember it. They made the hard call to get rid of Jack Watts. Now, I don't know if you remember, when they got rid of Watts, the SEN phone lines were melting down. The boards were melting down. They moved on Jesse Hogan, who was a rising star and almost the future. But then you have a look at the two people they got for him. Watts got Bailey Fritsch. We saw what he's turned into last year. And we got Stephen May, who was the pinnacle of a backline with Jake Lever. So you sometimes need to make those hard calls to take that step forward, because you can only, it's like not all romances have the perfect marriage. Some of them break up, and in those cases, I think that you've done the right thing by moving those on to either free up those spots or get something back for them. But they've done their time. You thank them very much, but yeah, you do have to have those tough conversations. And I think Voss is one of those guys that will not hesitate to have those tough conversations because he had them with his players all the time, and I think that's something that you probably needed.
100%. I think you've nailed it.
Oh, gee, that was quick. Rightio. Now, a couple of things. We rolled through these last year, and I want to roll through them again as well too, because I want to find out from your perspective. So, the breakout star. I know you mentioned one earlier on at the start. Are you sticking with them, or did you want to? Who's going to be the breakout for the Blues this year?
So I did say Jack Silvani, but I'll give you a name, a young guy. We've got a group of 4 or 5 young ones who I don't think anyone will know outside of Carlton, but I think the other name is Brody Kemp. I think by the end of the year, the rest of the AFL world will look and say, oh, who is this? I think he's the one.
He had reps on him going into his draft year as well too, and I think you guys snagged him at what position did he go in the draft? Do you remember?
Well, he was, I believe he was pick 19. He did his ACL halfway through his draft year. He was touted as one of the top 3 picks.
That was why.
And then he slid. We took the opportunity to take him knowing he wouldn't play at all in his first year. And then he came back from injury, and then he did his ankle pretty badly last year. So he's back on the park now. He's going to hold down a nice spot. He's a utility. So they're trying him in the back, in the forward. He's got a nice size about him, and he's got some nice skills. I think the rest of the world.
He's not bad, 193 and 81 kegs. Not too shabby. But also, we don't use the words for all the older people, that's a utility.
Yes.
But now we use them as a swing man. because, using AFL terms is not the go anymore. We have to pull it in from the States. So
correct.
Now, we had the breakout. Unfortunately, we're going to have the breakdown. Whose last season can you see where the voluntary, involuntary, or injury perspective? Because there's a number of factors in there that are going to potentially ruin somebody's season.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on Jack Martin. Like, obviously, I'm very hopeful for Jack Martin, but the reality is every year in his career to date, there's been some sort of a breakdown in the body, soft tissue, or collision injury. So it's a really hard question to answer, but I'm very mindful of Jack Martin's ability to play 22 games.
If he can get 15, PCL's not an easy one to come back from. If he can get 15 quality games out of him out of 22, you happy with that?
Yeah, because I think he definitely has that X factor ability. You can turn it on in a quarter and kick a couple of goals in a really short amount of time. The challenge with him is just extending that to 4 quarters and staying healthy and staying on top of his body. And he's a hard nut, but he's not really built like what he plays, if that makes sense. Like, he's really hard at it, but his body's still quite slight. So I don't know if that's got something to do with why he keeps breaking down, but I'm mindful of his ability to stay on the park. Well,
he plays like Tarzan, but has a body like Jane, unfortunately. Not trying to cause any issues with that statement. I'm just going by the saying there, everybody. Can I ask you really quickly, sort of when I sort of look at that breakdown sort of field, I've got to ask you about 2 people, Caleb Marchbank and Will Setterfield. They just keep coming up, and I've got to get it from your perspective. Like, where do these two sit? Because both of them have that really dangerous word called potential. Where do you see these two sitting?
I mean, listen, if Marchbank was fully fit and healthy and at his best, I look at him as the number 2 to Jacob Wiedering, number 1 in the back line. That's how highly we rate him. The reality is the body has it's been devastating. The back injury, the ACL, the hamstring, it hasn't worked for nearly 3 years now. So I'm not holding my hopes out too high for Caleb Marchbank, if I'm honest, but I'm begging for him to stay healthy. Setterfield's an interesting one. 2020, he was our most improved player. 2021, Teague puts him onto a wing. I don't think that's his game. He's an inside midfielder, so naturally he gravitates towards the ball. He's not a wingman to stay wide. But now that with Walsh out, there is an opportunity. And I would never say that I don't want Sam Walsh in the side, but through this comes an opportunity. And I think Setterfield has to put his name forward in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season to fill in that spot. So that way, when Walsh comes back, we have a selection headache. And I think he's got all the talent. He's got again, I'm saying the same thing. It's a what if.
Can I say, when you have headaches, normally headaches are the most painful thing in the world.
Yes.
When you have selection headaches from a supporter's perspective, there's nothing better because it's like you've got depth and you haven't got like just depth in terms of numbers to fill. You've actually got people pushing for spots and it makes the team so much better and it makes it so much more exciting that if you do lose one or two, that you're not going to be like other clubs who are going to fall off the cliff. You've got some quality to go back straight in. So that's nice to have that headache. Right. Last year, actually, before we go last year's ladder position, you mentioned him. How good can this guy get? How good can Sam Walsh get? Because I'm a massive fan. It was kind of the question I mentioned about Clayton Oliver on a previous episode with somebody else, that he's the last player outside of Sam Walsh that I know that's virtually had a level and played at that level the entire time. Like it's just been just a level of consistency. He's the only one I can see in the last 10 years, I think, outside of all of that's been consistent since day dot. How good can this guy get? Because he is – every other club would love him. You are very, very – and he's signed on. I think with Walshy, one of the beautiful things about him, first of all, his work rate and his consistency, but one of the beautiful things about him is he doesn't try and do more than what the team's asking of him. He actually makes others around him better. He looks for the right option most of the time. And I think that's what separates the good ones from the great ones. The great ones do the basic things right over and over again. And that's Walsh. Now, how much better can he really get? I mean, he's averaging close to 30 touches. He's almost kicking a goal a game. I think if he can just keep this pace at a steady rate and just continue to build on his body, get more strong. He said himself he wants to work a bit more on his inside game, which is already pretty solid as it is. But now that he's entering that fourth season, like he's still quite young. He's not even he's 21 years old. When he's 25, 26 is really when it's the sweet spot. So it's exciting. I also am very mindful of not getting caught into this Carlton mentality of the savior, the God figure, the Messiah, because we've done that for way too long. Nah, I don't think so. This guy's got something special about him. Like, if you ask any player or any football fan, full stop, would you have Sam Walsh in your team? You don't even have to answer that for us because we know what the answer would be as well too. And look, he's your Randy Nichols medalist as well. And what, he come second in the Brownlow last year?
Yeah, I think it was equal second. Yeah,
equal second. There you go. Like, he is an absolute jet. Right, yeah. You finished 13th on the level last year. 13th on the level. 13th on the ladder last year. Are we giving it a yay for a higher position or a nay that, no, we're actually going to go backwards?
It needs to be 12 wins, 8th spot. Maybe if we're lucky, we hit 7th, but 11/12 wins. I think 11, you can sneak into the 8 like Essendon did last year. 12 wins, you lock yourself into the 8. And that's what I'm looking at from this group. 11 to 12 wins, and getting right up there.
And you had 8 last year, so it's only 4 extra wins, but there was a couple of smaller ones that you could have definitely snuck in. And that's it. I think you have to have the really tight losses to appreciate what you need to do. And it's a kick here, it's a mark there. It's only something small that'll take it to that. That's definitely achievable for what you've brought in, to throw in obviously another year of Mackay down forward and also having a fit Charlie Curnow. There's definitely some capability there. Rightio. So, Premier for 2022. Who are you going with? Who catches your eye for the flag for 2022?
I think we are entering the Melbourne Football Club dynasty. I think the Dean will do it again. Yeah, I think so. I think they unlocked themselves mentally and what they're capable of doing, and I think they've set it up well with the culture and the way they've all bought in. I know they've got superstars, but they've also got a lot of role players that just play so well, and they've just got this team cohesion that I look at as a Carlton supporter and say, that's how I want my team to play. You know, I remember going to the Melbourne game last year and just watching the entire 18 on the field move almost in unison. It was quite beautiful to watch. And I'm sure as a Melbourne supporter, all of them out there would have enjoyed that as well. So I think the Ds are really just starting.
It is nice to hear that. And look, as keeping everything nice and clear, I'm a Melbourne supporter, so it's nice to hear. But I think the thing what you said is that we unlocked it. You can't manufacture that. And I think that if you can get that complete buy-in, You build it organically. You get the people that you need to. So, we May, Langdon, these sort of things. Brown from our perspective. And then you have that young kids growing together. Oh, like I'm getting tingles talking about it. You should be getting tingles because you're getting that group coming through, and that's exactly what you want. But just enjoy it. Like all I can say is just enjoy the bad times because when the good times come, it's awesome. Rightio. Who's going to be the Coleman medalist for 2022? You've already got the reigning one. Will he go the Melbourne Football Club way and go back to back?
He will. Harry will go up another level. I think he'll kick somewhere between 60 and 70 goals in that bracket, and I think he'll do it again. I think he'll, like I said, with Charlie back, it takes a defender away that would have been on Harry, and I think Harry's stronger, quicker, better as a leader and as a player. He's had a full preseason, which is important, and I think he will continue to be a 60+ goal forward, which gives you the best chance of winning it.
Nice, and then obviously that means that you're going to be then going into a Brownlow, and you've got the guy that came in second last year. Is he going to go take one step further? Who do you have your eyes on? Because let's be honest, did you pick Ollie Wines to be a Brownlow medalist last year?
No, I didn't.
No.
I did not.
I do know one person who did it was my brother on the Melbourne podcast one he did last year. He picked it and he hasn't stopped reminding me of it. But who do you see taking out the big award at the end of the year if there's somebody like that? He's my pick. He's my pick.
All right. I hate to be biased, but I think it's Patrick Cripps. He's back this year.
Ooh, okay. I actually wrote down, I started writing Sam. I've got to cross that out.
Well, Sam's going to miss a big chunk of pretty much the first half of the season.
Yep.
And I think Cripps will stand out from our point of view. He's fit and firing. He's got this look in his eyes. Have you ever seen someone in the best physical condition of their life? Like the white in their eyes is really shining white. Cripps is just glowing.
Yeah, I had a shower this morning and looked in the mirror and I saw perfection right there. But because he hasn't been himself for the last couple of years. Shoulders, backs, knees, you name it. It's every part of the body. But I think you're right, though. If he can get these guys, especially Chera coming in to take a bit of that pressure off him, he can go forward too. That's the thing that I think people may not think as much as that. He can go and he can kick goals, and not just one or two. He can kick a bag if he needs to as well too. He's a massive unit.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, he's got Michael Voss as a coach, and when you talk about the Cripps-Voss relationship, we're talking about inside midfielders, captains, big clubs, and expectation. I think the captaincy now being solely on Cripps is important because it's now that time where he doesn't have the quote-unquote apprenticeship as a captain. It's time to really have that ownership. He's fit mentally, physically, spiritually. And I think when it comes to the challenges of the season, there's going to be no one better for Cripps to be talking to than Michael Voss because he's literally been in the same position as Cripps. So I'm expecting Cripper to be right back to his best, if not better.
And when you say same position, you're right. He was in that early 2000, so was it 90, about 98, 99 when they got to play their first final. I remember, I think it might have even been against Carlton, their first final. He got to be part of that. And then he got to see what it takes to get to 2000, not 2000, but 2001, 2002, up to 2004. You're right. You couldn't ask for anybody in a position where your club is to sort of drive them forward. So is there a news headline? If you had to give a headline for the Carlton performance at the end of the season, we pick up the Herald Sun or we log on to news.com.au and there's a headline. You're the editor. You've got to write Carlton's headline for the 2022 season. What's it going to be?
It's going to be My Blue Heaven.
Oh, I like it. All right, write that one down. My Blue Heaven. Now, last but not least, I have to ask this: the podcast, the video channel, everything. Where's Blue Abroad going this year? What are the plans? What are the supporters, the members, the community looking forward to? What can they look forward to on your channels?
Yeah, well, very grateful to have built what's been built so far and how much it's grown. And it really is a family and a community. And we really do. I mean, obviously we haven't been good. So what it's turned into is this place where we all come to be with each other and almost have a therapy session.
It's true though. It's true.
And then if you lose, the opposition supporters love to come and watch the fan cams and watch us all melt down. So it's entertaining for anyone involved. But I think this year we've got 6 shows on the network and 5 of them are run by people that are not me. So it's good to be able to give the opportunity to other people to start their content creation experience and careers. So I think that's important to me. And then also providing a pathway for younger kids that are coming out of high school, want to work in the sports media world and don't know where to go. So we have that available, and I'm really proud of that. But it's going to be more of the same, a lot of hard work. And I guess I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do in terms of we're going to be great, we're going to be number one in this and that. It'll just be, the proof will be in the pudding, and I'll let the audience decide how good we are.
Let's be honest. If you're listening to this, why wouldn't you want to just jump on? I must admit, I jump on. I love the little fan cams. I love the artwork. Just even your thumbnails. I go, oh God, I wish we were at that level. But I just love it, and I think this is the best part about what we get to do is that we get to talk about our sport. I get to talk about every club. You get to talk about yours. But most importantly, we get to build communities. We have ours. You've got your own, and it's everybody just going in the same direction that we just want to talk about the greatest sport in the world too. So, and I can't thank you enough. Listeners, there is your 2022 season preview for the magnificent Carlton Football Club. Terry, thank you very much. And most importantly, I'm going to ask you the question, and you know what it is. How do you love your football?
Lace out.
Yes. Didn't even have to prompt him for it. He knows it. There you go, listeners. Have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great season. And I do think, finally, we can smell what the Blues are cooking.